City cards right for your next trip? These cards can look really, really exciting when you look at the face value. But will you get value out of a card if you purchased one for a city that you were visiting? Join me as I explore city cards. I'll give you tips to figure out if it is the right thing for you to do. I'll give you some lessons that we've learned over our 5 city card experiences, and one of those did not go very well. And hang around to the very end of the video where I share a couple of things that I find absolutely bonus about using city cards. Have you ever used a city card? What was your experience like? I would love to hear in the comments below how you found using a city card. So what is a city card? In a nutshell, it's a tourist card full of free entries, discounts, transport, as I said. Often you can get a skip the line in some places, so you don't have to wait. When purchasing a city card and deciding if it's right for you, you can purchase them for anything from 1 day to up to 7 days. And in that range, you need to figure out how much value you're going to get. Some of the inclusions that you can expect to find in a majority of the cards are free entry, priority access, choice of different types of cards. Some are cheaper than the other, but the payoff might not be worth it for you in the end. Some include public transport. So for the whole time that you've got your card, you've got access to public transport. That is a phenomenal inclusion. And other bonuses that could be included might be other discount entries, discounts to walking tours or bike tours or something like that, discount entry to cooking classes and other activities that you may be contemplating to do. So if you could save 10%, knowing that it's rolled into the card and you've already got your value, then who knows, that might be a way to go. You can also get discounts in cafes and restaurants. Another bonus that comes with these cards is that you can get a guide, like an information book, or it might just be part of an app that you get if you get an electronic version that gives you the opening time, the address, whether you need to make a booking, because especially in this post-COVID world, there's lots of places that have timed entry or are taking bookings. So that's something that we need to keep in mind when we are looking. And even if you don't get a city card, when we're researching places that we want to visit, it's always good just to double check that it is just open entry, or do we need to get a timed entry booking. And I do actually have a blog that I wrote a little while ago on the subject of city cards that sort of covers things a little bit more. It's a written form of information that I'm giving you now. When I was doing the research for both of those, I realised that there are the companies basically that are on selling cards, or if a company is built up that has multiple cities, then you can access all of their cards and have a really good look. Another thing that I found in researching for this video was that quite often you can get cards from multiple companies offering slightly different things, so it's always worth double checking. So I guess the thing I'm saying is research, research, research. Now I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into how I research so that I make a decision on whether we're going to purchase them or not. For example, our last trip to London and Ireland, we used the city card in Dublin. How did I come about deciding that that's what I was going to do? I made a list of all the places in my general research and places that friends had suggested we see. Many of those were non-negotiables or things that we really did want to see. And then I went and I had a look. I ended up using GoCity. So I went and I was on the GoCity website and looked at what was available, looked at what was included as free entry. So knowing that completely our visit to that destination or that location would be covered. So I write down what I wanted to see, write down their prices, tally their prices. So I knew what that section of the trip was going to cost. Then I would go to the GoCity website and look at what was included in the card, what destinations and locations were included, and which ones were fully covered, so were free entry with the card. Then I would take the total of the card and the total of what I was looking to spend and see what happened. My rule of thumb is if it's around $10 discrepancy or €10, whatever the pricing is, so for Ireland it was euros, I would consider it if I looked at what else was available. And I'll touch base on that one a little bit more in a minute. So in the end, Ireland worked out for us. And I knew that if we needed to change things up and be a bit more flexible with our itinerary, there was also a bit more flexibility in the card so that there were places that we could see that were still covered and wouldn't cost us any more money, so that most of our sightseeing in Dublin was then covered once we bought those cards. Dublin was a great success. One of the things that I just said, looking at Dublin, was making sure that there was a little bit of wriggle room within the card's other locations to visit. And that gives you a bit of flexibility. So when we were in Dublin, on day one, we got up and it was raining. My itinerary map out was a lot of walking. So we ended up doing the hop on, hop off bus because it was included in the city card and we didn't have to pay any extra for it. It was covered, it was done, and it was a bonus. Then day two, we got to Dublin Castle and it was closed because Joe Biden was visiting at the time. So everything around there was no go. Because we had been on the hop on, hop off bus the day before and we had a bit in the bank, so to speak, from the first day, not going to the castle wasn't a big hit to the pocket, or didn't feel like a big hit to the pocket. Later that day, we had to drop something, that activity we were going to do. Then we picked up another activity that was on the card that was around the corner. Win-win. It still worked out that we were still getting value for money. We hadn't lost anything. We had flexibility, and that's always a great thing when you're traveling. If you're getting value out of today, I'd really, really appreciate it if you hit that like button. And if you would consider subscribing to our channel, we do travel vlogs where we profile destinations and show them off, and I'm going to give more and more travel tip videos to help you guys travel better. Both of those actions are free and we would love you to be a part of our community. Have you ever bought a card or looked at the cards walking around the street and gone, that could be a good idea? Is that a good idea to buy it spontaneously? Let me tell you a little story. Now I think you can see where this story is going to go. I do favour research, and part of the reason that I really favour research now is because of the story I'm about to tell you. In 2019, as part of our anniversary trip, we went to Budapest. Now, I hadn't done a lot of research. It was sort of the last stop on our trip. We'd had a fairly action-packed itinerary. The little bits of research I did, I thought were enough, but they weren't. So we got into Budapest and had a bit of a look around. We were up at the Fisherman's Bastion, wandering around, and we saw a kiosk selling city cards. We went in, we had a bit of a chat, we got a bit of brochure, got a bit of information, walked out without the city card, and then went into the city and later that night ended up purchasing the city card. Now there was probably one or two things that were a bit blingy on the city card that I thought, yeah, we can make it work, it'll be great, we'll do this, we'll do that, without actually looking at any of the fine details about these shiny blingy bits. In the end, the things that on paper, without actually looking at a map or anything like that that looked good, were too far out for us to squeeze into the limited amount of time we had in Budapest. The other things that we were interested in were all discounted, but not enough to actually have paid for the card. So in the end, we used the transport that was included, which was brilliant, by the way. We did a walking tour and took a discount at a cafe or bakery. And that was pretty much all that we did with them. I don't think we even went into a museum or anything like that. So for us, we wasted our money. Looking at the Budapest card as I was researching for this video, there's actually quite a few free entries included in that. It was just that none of them interested us enough at the time. Now, I'm not saying don't buy a card if you see it on the streets and you think it's a good idea. Just be aware of some of the pitfalls that might happen if you do. So talking about pitfalls, what could be some of the pros and cons of buying a card? As I've said, one of the big things is if you do your research before you go, you can have a lot of your tourist attractions covered and paid for before you leave home. So once you're on the ground, you're not forking money out all the time, you're not having to keep an eye on your budget because you've covered that already. So that's a really big win for me. Another pro is transport, if it's included. That just helps make it easier and you know all that's covered for the length of time. You can add things on and do tours and do hop on, hop off buses. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with them, but if they're included in a city card that we've already covered the bulk of the cost on, then I might add it. In Paris, you can do the boat tour up the Seine. And that's a really lovely way to spend an afternoon, really. So there's lots of things like that that can be included that make it pros. You can save money at restaurants and take the guide suggestions as places to try and eat and drink that you might not have considered. That's another pro. For me, the biggest con is that you might not get your value for money. And you might purchase it and things that you assumed were fully covered might not be covered. And so you might only get a 10 or 20% discount rather than free entry. It makes you brave too. One of the things that we did in Dublin that I would never have done if we had to pay for it was go to a whiskey distillery and try whiskey. I don't drink whiskey. I don't drink a lot of alcohol. I drink beer, I drink wine and cider, but I don't do a lot of spirits or anything. So going to a whiskey distillery is not something I do. But it was included in the price. When in Ireland, go to a whiskey distillery. We had a ball. The tour was great. The guide that we had was amazing, and you can see that in our vlogs. We've got 3 Dublin vlogs, and every day in that video I do refer to using the Dublin Go City card. So if you want to see how we made it work in Dublin, I would suggest going and having a look at the Dublin series. Will a city card help you with your next destination visit? Maybe, maybe not. Some cards are better than others, and the offerings can vary widely on what is being made available. So research really can make the difference between it making and breaking your holiday, and whether you come home disappointed with your purchase or happy with it. One of the most favourite things I like about this thing is if you've got a bit of space in your itinerary and there's something else on the list that you want to do that's free entry, you can add it. You don't have to be watching your pennies or your budget. You can just add something else to it. If you want to add the hop on hop off bus, or do a cruise up a river, or go up an extra tower, and it's covered and it's free, you can do it, and it does not affect your holiday budget. For me, as long as I've covered that initial purchase with what I plan on doing, everything over and above that is a bonus. I must admit, while getting sidetracked, I did fall down the rabbit hole of comparing cards for destinations that we will be visiting. We may end up purchasing a Prague card. It can be so hard to make sure that we don't cram pack our itineraries. There's must-see sites, there's places to eat, there's places that your friends recommend, there's the places that you're interested in. All of this can become a little bit overwhelming. So here are 3 tips in this video to help you get balance in your itinerary. As always, thanks for joining us. Travel brilliantly. Bye.